Okay, so we got some more alarming news, and this comes after we have had a U.S. general. That's right, U.S. General Minihan, who oversees the U.S. Air Force's fleet of transportation and refueling aircraft. This is a serious top general in the U.S. Air Force. He oversees the entire fleet of transport. Okay. Said that we would be at war with China by or before 2025, which has put a lot of people in the United States on serious alert, right? Now, in addition to this, we have Representative McCall, who is the House chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, saying that he agrees with him. And this is the chairman of the Foreign Affairs in Congress. So listen to what he has to say and let me know your thoughts on this. And it makes you wonder, what does the general of the Air Force know, or what does the Congress and the House of Representatives Foreign Affairs Committee, what do they know that we don't know yet? So take a listen to what he has to say and let me know your thoughts here.
Joining us now, Chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Congressman Michael McCall. Congressman, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Thanks, Shannon. Thanks for having me.
All right, I want to start by this report of a U.S. general, a top general, who is making a comment about a potential war with China in 2025. Get your reaction to this. NBC News is citing a memo to his officers with this quote. They say, "I hope I am wrong," he says to them. "My gut tells me we'll fight in 2025. Now, that's being met with a lot of different reactions, some skepticism. This is attributed to the opinion of one man. What do you make of that, and how do you think that's going to be received in China?
Well, I hope he's wrong as well. I think he's right, though, unfortunately. I mean, China is mounting...
Wait, an actual war?
Well, I think China is looking at reunification of Taiwan, right? That's how they call it. There are several ways to do that. The first one is to influence the election that will take place a year from today. President Tsai's party is running for re-election. China is hitting them hard, saying they're a proxy of the United States to go to war with China. If they succeed in that effort, like Hong Kong, without a shot fired, but if they don't win in that one, they are going to look at a military invasion, in my judgment. We have to be prepared for this. And it could happen, I think, as long as Biden is in office, projecting weakness, as he did with Afghanistan that led to Putin invading in Ukraine, that the odds are very high we could see a conflict with China and Taiwan and the Indo-Pacific. This goes back to my father's war, World War II.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because those things are all interconnected. Let's talk about Ukraine and these tanks that we're sending over. You have said there's going to be a winter offensive by Russia. These tanks are needed in the Donbass region. But this is what the Pentagon said this week about when they may actually get there.
We just don't have these tanks available in excess in our U.S. stocks, which is why it is going to take months to transfer these M1 A2 Abrams to Ukraine.
Okay, so there's another estimate that says up to a year for them to get there. It doesn't help Ukraine in the short term. And do you worry about what that telegraphs to bad actors like China about our ability to be ready?
Well, the better Ukraine does against Russia, the more deterrence against China. That's very clear and an important point. With respect to the tanks, all that was necessary is the United States to give the signal that we're going to do this, to unleash the Leopard tanks that are in Germany, in Finland, in the Netherlands, but 10 other countries that needed permission to put their tanks in. The Leopards can be put in tomorrow and today, actually. The Abrams tanks need more logistics supply, training. So I wouldn't, the key was to commit Abrams tanks to unleash the Leopards. The Leopards are going to go in almost immediately. What's important, Shannon, is that Putin has changed his new general. He took the butcher of Syria out, new general in to do an offensive in the winter, spring, and now Ukraine needs the resources to do a counteroffensive against Russia.
So this talk about our ability to send them armaments on whatever time schedule raises this question about our military production and capability. There's a new study this week. It's sounding an alarm about that. The Wall Street Journal quotes this, and it says the protracted conflict has exposed the strategic peril facing the U.S. as weapons inventories fall to a low level and defense companies aren't equipped to replenish them rapidly. Now, this goes back to your issue with China as well, because the study says that we could run out of precision missiles and advanced technology in less than a week if we get into a conflict with Taiwan. That's a shocking assessment. Do you agree with it, and how worried are you about that?
Very. Our defense industrial base is broken. I signed off on all foreign military weapon sales 3 years ago that have yet to go into Taiwan. So we need that deterrence. But if we don't have the weapons, that's critical for deterrence. I would say that also, a third of this supplemental has gone into our ability to replenish our stockpiles and modernize our defense. A third of that to make new weapons, and a third into Ukraine. But it's important to know that the NATO eastern flank has put the Russian military into Ukraine as we backfill NATO to modernize their military.
Okay, let's talk about the debt ceiling, because the defense spending is a big chunk of that and part of that conversation. We're going to talk with your colleague, Democrat Congressman Adam Smith, in just a minute. And here's what he said about the GOP plan for dealing with the debt ceiling.
The real worry, however, is the approach that the radical MAGA extremists in the Republican conference want to take, and that McCarthy is willing to go along with, which is to shut down the government.
He talks about not passing appropriations bills or a short-term funding measure, refusing to raise the debt ceiling, triggering a fiscal crisis. How do you respond?
I don't think we're going to see a shutdown. I mean, McCarthy, talked to him. He's going to meet with the president, wants a reasonable debt ceiling to counter, irresponsible government spending. I agree with Adam in this sense that I will not sit back and watch our defense being cut at such a dangerous time in our history. I haven't seen anything like this, Shannon, since World War II, my dad's war. I mean, you have one dictator, largest invasion in Europe since World War II, the other dictator threatening the Pacific that the greatest generation liberated, and now these two, and Iran and North Korea, are trying to redraw the maps that the Yalta Conference brought to us.
Okay, so first, I think the U.S. needs to be building or restocking and building more ammunitions, more tanks, more missiles, and all sorts of more supplies here pretty fast. And the number one problem with this is going to be money. Yes, that's going to be the biggest problem here, especially because I think we're probably going to see some type of military cuts for funding on the table. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy said that from his previous interview that he was open to going back to the previous year's amount of funding for the military based on what some of the other Republicans want. So what that means is that he tried to pass it off as it's not really a cut. We're just going back to what the funding amount was for the previous year. It is actually a cut because they raised it for this new year, 2023. So they would be going back to the previous year. So it would be a cut. And then remember that every year the military budget gets larger and larger. So for 2024, they would be going up even higher. And he's talking about going back to 2022's budget amount. Okay, so you guys can let me know your thoughts here on this, whether it's right or wrong. And really, he's just talking about that there should be some, type of wasteful spending cut out of all types of government. Remember that the military, all branches of military, is one of, if not the only, form of spending in the government that is not audited. They basically just give them the money, and then under form of classification and top secret, they give them the money and we don't know where it goes. They just give them the billions and billions of dollars, $816 billion. It's over half of the $1.7 trillion government funding bill. And that's it. We don't know where it goes. So we have the age-old saying of, the $2,000 toilet seats that, it's just kind of a thing that's kind of thrown around. Not really $2,000 toilet seats, but we don't really know what they spend the money on. But on the other hand, we have all these things with Russia and Putin and China and North Korea and all these things that could be on the horizon. And we're slow on supplies with tanks and missiles and all these things that we need to stockpile, resupply ourselves that we really don't have.
We'll talk more with Congressman Smith about that coming up, but I also want to make sure to touch on the classified documents. So former Vice President Pence is the newest to come forward and say, hey, we've discovered something. There was a briefing for senators this week with the Director of National Intelligence. They came out in a bipartisan way, very frustrated and angry about what they weren't able to see. Here's what GOP Senator Tom Cotton said after the briefing.
Until the administration stops stonewalling Congress, there will be pain as a consequence.
So he says he's going to shut down some Senate business, potentially withhold judicial nominees, block them. Do you think that's the right approach? And what role of oversight should Congress have with these documents?
I agree with Tom Cotton. I mean, we're a separate branch of government. Article 1, the first article under the Constitution, and this administration has not shared these classified documents with the Intelligence Committee. I have access to those as well. I haven't seen anything to put all this in the proper context. First of all, I don't understand people taking classified documents home. If I did that, I'd be prosecuted. But having said that, where's the archivist through all this? Why isn't he or she in the room when the president, vice president are packing their boxes up? How did this happen? But more importantly, the Biden Center, $30 million from China at the time at University of Pennsylvania. Biden Center is being stood up. I have a lot of questions. I sent a letter to Secretary Blinken, who was the manager of that. The government in exile, the shadow government waiting. Did they have access to these documents? What were in the documents? Did they meet with foreign nation adversary actors from China? We don't know. But that's a very serious allegation that I think the American people deserve to know what happened.
Let us know if you get answers.
I will.
We'd like to know as well. Chairman, thank you for joining us again on
Thanks,
Fox News
Shannon.
Sunday.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let me know your thoughts here on this. And remember that they mentioned that report that we could actually run out of weapons within a few weeks if there was actually a U.S. in a war, which is pretty alarming here. Not a good thing. Not a good thing. So honestly, we need to have our weapons defense manufacturers on full go right now. They need to be full go. And what does that take? It takes money. But the problem is, especially the Republican Party right now, they want to be cutting pretty much all forms of just everything right now. They're more worried about the deficit, the national deficit, and the debt ceiling, and all sorts of things like that. There's just something they're concerned about right now. So let me know your thoughts here on this, because this is going to be a big thing going on right now, and you guys, we'll see what happens. So I'll keep you up to date here with everything going on here in our country on a daily basis. So if you haven't yet, make sure to click the subscribe button down below to our YouTube channel and click the bell icon after you subscribe so you don't miss out on new videos that come out here every day on our YouTube channel at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also, thanks so much for liking and sharing these videos with anybody that needs to hear this information, because you don't get to hear a lot of this stuff here on a daily basis. A lot of this stuff gets buried here by the mainstream media. Sometimes you'll hear it, sometimes you won't, and I uncover a lot of this stuff here from different sources here. So I'll keep you up to date here with everything you need to know about. Here's some videos you can watch next. Here is the other video about the U.S. general warning about the war with China. Click that video to watch that if you haven't seen that yet. And here is a major announcement coming from the feds in the next 72 hours. It's going to affect pretty much all Americans. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.